Easy Patreon. So in this video, I kind of thought it would be helpful to kind of look at a project that I worked on about a month ago. I think maybe the month before, where I decided to limit myself by using recordings from locations surrounded by water or near water and try to make a track around it. As a part of the project, I also made a audio responsive video to go with it. But I think the main thing for you guys is just trying to kind of like make use of found sounds and samples which you would probably consider unusable. I kind of had a lot of fun doing this just because sometimes when you limit yourself and you limit your resources, you kind of find yourself using and thinking of new creative processes and techniques to try to get to the direction which you're trying to get to. So yeah, I'm going to show you this project that I used to create this song out of basically water recordings. And then yeah, hopefully you guys can pick up a few techniques that might be useful to you. So I'm kind of doing this off of my laptop. This is what I used to create this track. And yeah, I'll kind of say that there's a couple plugins which I haven't managed to transfer to my new laptop yet. So, but we can make do and use something else in the meantime. And then yeah, you can have a listen back to this on my YouTube, and you can also see the video I made for it. And yeah, so let's have a quick listen to what we have in front of us. A lot of this track I tried to keep a lot of the rawness from the recordings. Just zoom in a little bit. I feel like so yeah, there's a couple sounds which, let me deal with this one first. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, disabled, denied. Yeah, I haven't managed to get my license over onto this laptop, but what I'll do, I'll just slap in a similar cool. Okay, so as I said before, everything here is made just using recordings around water. It's all just field recordings. That's all I used. Everything to use to make yeah, these drums. So like those plucks where I just added the reverb onto. If I bring it in, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more automation that I'm missing. And yeah, like these drum sounds down here. All field recordings. So if I duplicate this, just so that we can have a little ganders what's going on, I'm just gonna bypass these effects and then I can go in more detail later. and just bring up the sustain. Just so you can kind of see, it's just a field recording. Cool. One more thing I also want to mention. So I guess it's probably best that I do this technique first, just so that this can make sense. So what I'll do, I'll show you this straight away. What are you saying? If I turn all you off. Cool, perfect. Cool. Right. So I've got this sound here. And if I remember correctly, this is a recording in a tunnel. And there was just loads of there's a hole in it where loads of rain was kind of coming through. It's on the cycle track, so there's loads of people cycling past. You can still hear some of the birds, and that's why it has a natural reverb going on. So what I did is this technique. You can find it on YouTube. Elephant had a video on it first, and then there's another video with I think one of the guys who co-created Bitwig. He goes over the same technique as well, and they basically kind of go over how you can find harmonics in samples like this, making something which feels like noise and has loads of textures and frequencies going on, and highlighting harmonics out of it so that you can turn it into a pad or something else. What they first do, and what I did on this as well, is that you add an EQ, not that one, and then you start boosting frequencies. So if I start down here, if I change this to 440, get that boost, bring down the Q. Cool. So if you look in this bottom corner, that's as close to 440 I'm going to get. 439 Hertz A3. So this is basically going to be our fundamental, and I'm going to work around that. So if I just quick change these just so that they're band passes or bell shaped. I'm going to do the same with this one. So I'm going to double this and make this 880. I'm going to half this, so this is 220. And then boost, bring up the Q, boost, bring up the Q. So now let's have a quick listen to my sample now. And you know what, I'll just add a tuner as well, just so we can see what's going on. So you should be able to slowly start, you should be able to hear these harmonics now. So if I bypass it, just noise. And now we can hear A being resonated by the EQ. So what I'll do, I'll duplicate that again. So you've got it happening twice, just to boost the signal a bit more. Now it's more noticeable. And if I do it again, but what I might do, I'll just bring down the gain of each one. So I might bring down the gain to, I might change that to 6 dB. Let's make it 10. No, 7. I'll do that on all of these. 7 dB and you as well, 7 dB. Cool. So if I play this now, a strong A being played. So what I did, I added these EQs so that I can get this harmonic. And then I froze the track. Created a MIDI track for a sampler. And just brought that straight into my sampler. And now I need another audio. So that goes in there. And then this goes into my sampler. There we go. So now my sampler. And also, one last thing before I forget, I've got to change this now to A. Change my root. I'll change it to A3. Cool. And you know, if I just quickly... If I just slap a reverb on, and straight away we got a pad made out of that water noise, and we also got a little added texture to it as well. Almost got a kind of organy sound. So that's what I did with some of these noises. I'll just delete some of this now. So that's why on here, when we gave this a little play, you can still hear a note being resonated. I know that when I did that technique, rather than just keeping it at A, I highlighted all the nodes, so all the bands that I had resonating, and using a tuner, I just kind of sweeped left and right until I found a note which I was like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And then I bounced that in place, and then put that in the sampler. Cool. So obviously this got turned into a drum sound. So with any kind of percussion sounds, straight away, I'm just taking off that sustain, and I'm using a short decay. With like a fast attack. I've been using the chord MIDI effect just to kind of add a bit more body to the notes. So if I play a bit lower. And this is pretty much what I use for my kick. Bit of saturation just to give it a bit more drive. Let's just see what notes I was playing. And then a bit of reverb and some more saturation, and that's my kick. Little reverb kick going on. And then there's these little raindrops. So what I've done for this is So as you can see by the notes, I got all of them just going through, just playing. I just highlighted every note for more range. So I highlighted all the notes, and then I got an arpeggiator going on, and I just, as you can kind of see, I'm automating the gate and the rate. And this is just kind of more just like almost kind of creating a generative little kind of percussion noise going in the background. And then it's got a bit of echo going on with an LFO. And then this is like a free LFO you can kind of download. The developer for this, I can't remember his name, but I'll put a link onto the video. And this is just almost another LFO to control other parameters and LFOs, and then just get a bit more of a natural range between your automation. I've been using it for more like a sound design purpose. It's the kind of first time I've used it as an element within a track. Usually I use it to kind of create a sound itself. But yeah, it just adds a little bit more movement to whatever kind of elements you're trying to add character to. I'm going to drop that just because. So that's what I kind of got going on there. Then my river percussion. So these are just all little snapshots of, again, just recordings. I think it's all taken from one recording. And I just found, usually whenever I'm looking for this stuff, I'm just trying to find little bits of transients. So I just saw that little spike. I was like, cool, that'll do. And all of that just helped me kind of create this sound. With halftime, you know, I love to throw halftime on everything. Bit of saturation to add a bit of drive. I'm using this auto pan just so that I can almost have a pulse in. So rather than using like a ducking plugin, just to save me time, I just use auto pan. I just set the phase to 0. So now it's just like constant. And now we just got a little bit more movement. And then I got LFOs going nuts on this EQ. Just again, just to add more movement. So just to have some moving bands, just so that it doesn't feel like a static sound. And then what else we got going on? So again, the main reason for this video is because because one of the people in the Patreon, they brought it up and they kind of asked me how did I make this sound. And yeah, we kind of went over it together. And you know, as you obviously know and gathered, it's all just recordings. And the same sort of thing, just like with the drums, you know, being 100% honest, a lot of the processes going on are not that complicated. It's just a case of just trying to find little snippets which I can then further process. And a lot of sound design is not necessarily what you create with one plugin. You know, getting stuck in on Serum and just creating like a really crazy sound, you know, you can do that, but you know, that's only one dimension to sound design. And I find that a lot of my best patches is through a series of using different dynamic effects and different kind of creative effects. Adding reverb, changing envelopes, bouncing it down, resampling it, and then adding some more effects on top. That's how you can that's when you start getting more out of your sound, especially when you're kind of hard printing movement into a sample, and then you're playing that sample and you got all of these undertones which are just hard printed into it. There's me going off on a tangent. But same thing with this. Cool. So I use the MIDI chord again, just so that I just can get a little bit more out of it. And then that's going into my arpeggiator, just so I can kind of hold one note and it just thinks and it plays other notes into it, rather than me having to play chords into it. And then yeah, if I just bypass this again, so this sample, bring up the sustain, just bypass this reverb and filter, saturation and color. That's all it is just again, just like my noise with like a tone being resonated, using my filter, using my ADSR, just to really cut into it, make it really tight. Reverb. I've got my filter this is what I'm automating over time, just as an effect for the track itself. Saturation, just to give it a bit more drive. And shaper box, again, even more drive, just adding, as you can see in this middle bit, this is this band what I'm using, and using drive from shaper box just to only drive that middle frequency, that middle band, rather than the whole sound. And then what we got down here, these are just chords and plucks even more. A lot of this patch, with all honesty, is just cause Portal, I just found a good preset which I was just like, yeah, that sounds amazing, and I was just playing into that. And that's just another thing as well. It's just like, you know, if you're buying all of these plugins, just make the most out of the presets, because there's somebody sat there spending a lot of time making these just so that your life's a lot easier at the creative stage. And yeah, that's pretty much kind of how I went about with this project. So I guess the main thing really is that technique which I used with the EQs, just to kind of like resonate a note out of a sample which could be considered noise. So I mean, almost like a challenge for you guys. It'll be cool to kind of hear what you guys come up with. Limit yourself. Go out with your phone. If you have a field recorder, take a field recorder and, you know, record some sounds around your area and try that EQ technique and use it to make a pluck, use it to make a pad, use it to make a bass, you know, whatever you can kind of create out of it. Use it, save it, turn it into a patch. That's something for you to kind of use again. And yeah, send it over. I love to kind of hear what you guys are working on. And you know, like I kind of mentioned, I just found that whole kind of process for myself just fun, just being limited and just trying to think of new ways to kind of get the most out of one or two different sounds. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Make sure that you give me a shout if you have any questions. Love to hear anything you guys are working on relating to this topic. Till next time.